There's a quiet war happening inside every man, not a war against others, but against distraction, impulse, and comfort. The world tells you to chase more, want more, prove more. But the Stoics taught something different, that the man who can master himself needs no audience. Discipline isn't about control, it's about direction. The power to stay centered when everything around you tries to pull you apart. You've tried motivation, you've tried routine, but real change begins when you stop negotiating with your excuses. So this isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming present, one decision at a time. When perfection becomes a prison, you can spend half your life upgrading everything, the job, the home, the mirror, and still feel like something's missing. We've mistaken fixing for living. Every time life feels uncertain, we rush to polish it. But sometimes the more you fix, the less it breathes. I used to think peace meant keeping everything under control, that if I just solved one more problem, I'd finally rest. But that finish line keeps moving, doesn't it? Have you ever felt that too? That quiet exhaustion of always trying to earn your calm? The Stoics never called it control, they called it alignment, knowing the difference between what you shape and what you simply witness. Seneca wrote, "To be calm is the highest achievement of the soul." He never said, "to be flawless." So stop editing your life into something unrecognizable. Let it breathe. Let it be uneven. Stillness doesn't come from order. It comes from trust. You can't control who misunderstands you or who vanishes without explanation, but you can control who you become after it. That's composure. Not silence from weakness, but silence from strength. Most people mistake reaction for power. They shout, reply, correct, as if fast means strong. But the strongest man in the room is often the one who lets the noise pass through him untouched. There was a man at the grocery store last week. A stranger cut in front of him at the checkout line. He didn't sigh or roll his eyes. He just smiled and said, "Maybe he needed the time more than I did." That's mastery, not over others, but over self. Because stillness isn't passive, it's precision. You're not avoiding the world. You're conserving your strength for what truly matters. The Stoics called it the dichotomy of control. You can't change the storm, but you can decide how to steer your ship through it. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters." Not calmness, consciousness. So when the next unfair moment finds you, don't ask, "Why me?" Ask, "Who do I want to be right now?" Try this for one day. Don't correct, don't explain, don't rush. Just observe how your mind wants to fight for control. And in that space, you'll find it. The quiet strength that never needed to prove itself. Because the world doesn't remember how fast you reacted. It remembers how gracefully you return. Own the morning before the world wakes. The world doesn't steal your time. You give it away before sunrise. You check messages before you even meet yourself. You wake up reacting instead of remembering. But the morning was never meant to be noise. It was meant to be alignment. Every dawn is an invitation, not to do more, but to return to who you were before the world asked you to perform. The Stoics treated that first light as sacred. Marcus wrote, "At daybreak, remember you are rising to do the work of a human being. Not a brand, not a title, a human. You don't need a perfect routine. You need a reason to rise. Because motion without meaning is just another kind of sleep. The truth? Your brain doesn't crave goals. It craves progress. That heartbeat you feel when you move toward what matters. So wake up a little earlier, not to chase success, but to reclaim your direction before the world borrows it. Watch how quiet the streets are. Notice how soft the air feels before anyone speaks. That's not emptiness. That's the sound of your life waiting for you to show up. Once you taste that kind of clarity, you stop racing the clock. You start commanding it. I met a man once who used to say, "I'm always late to my own life." He'd rush from one task to another, calendar full, spirit empty. One morning he decided to walk before work. No podcast, no phone, no rush. He told me, "For the first time in years, I saw the sky change color." That's what direction feels like. Quiet, obvious, and alive. Because you can answer every email, hit every deadline, and still miss your life. Discipline without aim is just punishment in disguise. And purpose isn't found in doing more. It's revealed when you finally stop running. So tomorrow when the alarm rings, don't reach for your phone. Reach for your mind. Ask yourself, what kind of man do I want to be before the world wakes up? Because dawn doesn't make you stronger. It simply shows you what strength was already there. Silence the noise, hear your soul. We've turned life into a race, not to reach meaning, but to stay distracted enough to avoid it. You wake up and the world is already shouting, notifications, deadlines, voices that don't even belong in your head. You tell yourself it's productivity, but deep down you know it's just noise wearing a mask of purpose. We keep moving so we don't have to feel. But motion without direction is just a prettier name for running away. I once met a man who said, "I can't remember the last time I sat in silence without checking my phone." He laughed, then went quiet. This pause said everything. The Stoics believed silence wasn't absence. It was access. Access to your reason, your rhythm, your soul. Seneca wrote, "We waste much of life by being busy." He didn't mean laziness was the cure. He meant awareness was. So here's the truth. You don't need more time. You need less clutter disguised as duty. Don't chase a full schedule. Build a full center. Every morning, ask yourself, does this fill me or just occupy me? If it doesn't build your inner order, it's not work, it's escape. I once knew a woman who lived her whole life chasing advice, from podcasts, from coaches, from friends. But every voice she added made her own quieter. One day she said, "I'm so tired of guessing what my life should look like." I told her, then stop guessing, start listening. Because your soul has been speaking all along, it's just that you've had the volume turned up too loud. We mistake silence for loneliness, but silence isn't empty. It's where you finally meet yourself without witnesses. And here's what the Stoics knew. No one can give you alignment. They can point, but only you can walk. Stop outsourcing your peace. Stop auditioning for approval. The man who waits for permission stays a servant to noise, but the one who trusts his own rhythm finally becomes free. So tonight, before you scroll, sit still. Hear the hum beneath the chaos. That's not boredom. That's your life asking to be lived. Stay when it stops being easy. Everyone loves the spark, but few can stand the smoke. We glorify beginnings. The first post, the first workout, the first, "I'm changing my life." But the real test starts when the applause fades and no one's watching to see if you still mean it. I've been there, ready to quit something I once prayed for. Not because it failed, but because it stopped making me feel special. That's when I learned, if your drive depends on validation, you'll never build anything that lasts. The Stoics called it endurance of the good, to keep showing up long after the feeling leaves. Marcus wrote, "Don't argue what a good man should be. Be one in modern words. Stop waiting for motivation, build rhythm instead." You don't grow by chasing excitement. You grow by outlasting it. There was a blacksmith I knew. Every day he struck the same piece of metal hundreds of times. Someone once asked him, "Doesn't it get boring?" He smiled, "It does, until I remember that steel only softens under repetition." That's devotion, not to the fire, but to the form that emerges through it. When life gets hard, your mind will say, maybe it's not meant to be. But often that's just the sound of your old self begging to stay comfortable. Storms don't ruin your aim. They reveal what you were aiming with. Were you aiming through ease or through conviction? Marcus said, don't hope that life gets easier. Hope that you get stronger. Stillness isn't built in quiet rooms. It's forged where the noise is loudest. So the next time you want to walk away, pause. Ask yourself, would I respect the man who quits here? Because mastery isn't about never wanting to quit. It's about staying long enough to become someone who doesn't need the applause anymore. Kindness is the strongest form of power. He was known as a man you didn't cross. Sharp tongue, harder eyes, the kind of power people respect out of fear. One afternoon, he caught a boy stealing bread from his garden. The boy froze. But instead of anger, the man noticed the hunger. He handed him the bread and said, "Next time ask." "I'll give it anyway." Years later, on a storm-soaked night, that same man's truck broke down on an empty road. A stranger stopped to help. When the headlights hit his face, the man heard, "Do you remember the boy who stole your bread?" The man whispered, "You?" The stranger smiled. "You taught me that strength doesn't have to shout." Then he fixed the truck, waved, and disappeared into the rain. Most people think kindness makes you small, but kindness is control over chaos. It sees clearly, even when ego screams for revenge. Marcus wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." That's the Stoic truth. Mercy is might. Anyone can react. Few can restrain. Kindness doesn't mean surrender. It means knowing your boundaries and still choosing grace. It's the power that rewires futures quietly, through the moments no one applauds. Forgiveness, too, begins as exhaustion, not enlightenment. I knew a woman who carried her father's absence like armor. Every achievement was proof she no longer needed him. Until one day she saw an old photo. Him holding her as a child, both laughing. And for the first time, she didn't feel anger, just relief. That was the day she stopped rehearsing the pain. Forgiveness didn't change what happened. It changed who she was inside it. The Stoics said, no one can wound you without consent. They didn't deny the cut. They denied the control. You can love from afar. You can close the door and still wish them peace. Because sometimes freedom isn't reunion, it's release. Tonight, write one name that still weighs on you. Under it, write one lesson they taught. Whisper, thank you for the teaching. I'm finished, then let it burn, or tear, or float away. Kindness is not weakness. It's power mastered. And forgiveness isn't saying it's fine. It's saying I'm free. Walk into the fear that frees you. Comfort feels kind until you realize it's been stealing your edge one quiet day at a time. It starts small, a skipped challenge, a delayed dream, a promise saved for later. But comfort doesn't announce itself as weakness. It arrives disguised as deserved rest. We tell ourselves, I've earned this peace. But peace built on avoidance isn't peace. It's a padded cage. Everything you want, clarity, courage, depth, waits in places that scare you. Fear is not the sign you're in danger. It's the sign you found something worth your growth. The Stoics understood this long before us. Seneca warned, it's not the man with too little who is poor, but the one who fears discomfort. Fear is the universe's way of asking, how badly do you want it? Every time you feel that pulse in your chest, it's not a stop signal, it's a summons. So walk toward what shakes you. Say yes before you're ready. Because fear is never a wall, it's a doorway. And no one finds freedom waiting in the hallway. Comfort, on the other hand, is clever. It won't destroy you with pain. It will dull you with pleasure. You'll call it balance. You'll call it peace. And one morning, you'll wake up and realize you stopped living. Somewhere between easy and empty. Do something uncomfortable this week, not to prove you're strong, but to remind yourself you still are. Take the longer route. Speak when your voice shakes. Start the thing you've postponed. Let your pulse quicken. That's how you know you're alive. Because discipline isn't the enemy of stillness. It's the framework that keeps it standing. Without it, even joy collapses under its own weight. The Stoics called it soft slavery, a life so safe it quietly kills the spirit. Freedom isn't avoiding fear. Freedom is learning to move through it with open eyes. You don't have to seek pain. Just stop worshiping comfort. Because the man who learns to stand in discomfort is the only one who truly knows peace. Find yourself in the quiet. When was the last time you were truly alone? Not lonely, just alone. We used to wake to birds. Now it's alarms and notifications. Noise disguised as necessity. A world built to connect us has quietly made everyone strangers, even to themselves. You scroll for a spark of peace, but every swipe trades silence for static. I once saw a couple at dinner. No fight, no distance. Just two glowing screens between cooling plates. They weren't together. They were simply near. That's how disconnection begins. Not in miles, but in moments. Every minute you give to distraction is a vote against your own mind. Attention is your new currency. Spend it like your life depends on it. Because it does. If that stings a little, it should. You weren't meant to live on autopilot. We're drowning in information, but starving for reflection. You don't need more data. You need more depth. The Stoics warned against dependence, the need to constantly escape yourself. If you can't sit in stillness without grabbing for a screen, you're not relaxing. You're running. Epictetus said freedom begins where attention is under your command. And in today's world, attention is the most stolen thing on earth. So don't mute the world completely. Just lower the volume until you can hear your soul think again. Not every sound deserves your nervous system. Not every headline deserves your heartbeat. Tonight before bed, no screens, no noise. Just breathe, listen, and ask. When everything goes quiet, who am I left with? That's the man who's been waiting to meet you. Do good, tell no one. The moment you wait to be thanked, you trade your good deed for ego. I once watched a man fix a neighbor's broken fence in silence. No one saw him. A week later, someone else took the credit, and he simply smiled. Maybe that's real strength. Doing good no one can trace back to you. Because peace born in silence lasts longer than praise ever will. The instant you stop needing recognition, respect begins to find you anyway. Silence has its own gravity. It pulls admiration without asking. We don't help because it looks noble. We help because it keeps us human. Because kindness, done quietly, keeps the heart from hardening. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you have done a good act, remember another waits for you." Virtue isn't a moment, it's a rhythm. If you can give, give quietly. If you can care, care without witnesses. The ego wants credit. The soul just wants to serve. Service without credit is strength in disguise. You don't need applause to echo truth. Most people wait for someone else to lead. The mentor, the hero, the ideal. But what if the person you're waiting for has been waiting for you? Change spreads through example, not instruction. Everyone wants a role model. Few are brave enough to become one. I once met a man named Victor. He sighed, "I wish my son had a better father." I told him, "What if he could, by meeting one inside you?" And for the first time, his silence sounded like understanding. That's how it happens. The shift from wanting proof to being it. The world doesn't need more advice. It needs more evidence. Your family doesn't need perfection. They need your peace. Your colleagues don't need speeches. They need your steadiness. Your partner doesn't need promises. They need presence. Marcus said it best. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one, be the calm in chaos, the gentle in conflict, the grounded in uncertainty. Not for applause, but for alignment. Every time you choose grace over ego, restraint over reaction, discipline over desire, you quietly reset the standard for what humanity can be. Entire families heal because one person stopped repeating the cycle. Entire workplaces change because one person stopped gossiping. Entire lineages shift because one father chose awareness over anger. That's the quiet revolution. The one that starts with you. Stop searching for heroes. They were just ordinary people who finally stopped waiting. Think of one trait you admire most. Patience, honesty, courage, and live it today. Don't wait for the world to deserve it. Becoming the example isn't about status. It's about service, not to others, but to your higher self. You don't need to announce your growth. The world will feel it in how you show up. When noise returns, when motivation fades, remember this: you are not the audience. You are the proof. You were enough before you tried so hard. You've spent half your life proving your worth to people who stopped thinking about you years ago. You don't owe the past another performance, only your presence now. The chase for validation never ends. It just changes disguise. Today it's success. Tomorrow it's peace you're trying to earn. But you were worthy long before you were productive. That's the truth most men forget. The Stoics never sought approval. They sought alignment. They didn't ask, "Am I enough?" They asked, "Am I living by what I believe?" Stop auditing yourself like an unfinished project. The world will never hand you permission to rest. You have to give it to yourself. You're not behind. You're becoming. That's not motivation. It's the quiet revolution of a man who finally stops running. If you've made it this far, you've already done what most never do. You've stayed, not just through this video, but through every uncomfortable truth it carried. That's self-command too, the courage to face yourself. You don't need to master every Stoic principle tonight. You just need to remember one thing. You're not rebuilding a life. You're remembering how to live one. Maybe the world told you to be faster, louder, tougher, but all along, life just wanted you to be still enough to hear what it's been whispering. You were never behind. You were simply being refined. No one truly starts over. We all start from now. A little wiser, a little quieter, a little less desperate to prove. And that's enough. Peace isn't found at the top of the mountain. It's found mid-climb. In the pause between trying and trusting, in the choice to stay kind when bitterness would be easier. Tonight, when you close your eyes, don't replay what went wrong. Replay what you survived, the mornings you rose anyway, the strength that never asked for applause. That's your proof, not the trophies, not the headlines, but the simple fact that you're still here, trying, learning, returning. The Stoics called that virtue. Today, we just call it being human. If these words steadied you, pass them forward. Someone out there needs the calm you've earned. And when life gets loud again, come back here. Stillness will be waiting. You've just walked through the core of Stoic discipline. Not the discipline of punishment, but the discipline of peace. Every moment you choose awareness over reaction, every time you stay calm instead of chasing control, you reclaim the part of yourself the world tried to take. The point was never to become unshakable. The point was to remember that even when you shake, you can still stand tall. Discipline is the quiet confidence that says, I know who I am, even when life tests me. Carry that into your next morning. Move slower, choose better, respond wiser, because the man who leads himself never loses direction again. Peace begins with one steady soul. Let it be yours. If these words steadied you, pass them forward. Share this with someone who's fighting in silence. And if you found stillness here, subscribe. So when life gets loud again, you'll know where to return.